Thank you. Before I start, quick question. Who was here last year already? Okay, you also heard me talking last year, and you still came back. That's brave. Last year I was talking about stress, right? It's not exactly an awesome topic. Well, let's see what we can do this year. I'm personally very happy to be here for the second time. I'm even more happy to see that there's so many more people than last year. And I think we're going to have a great day. Erzsébet made an awesome start. Let's see how I can continue. Procrastination. Strange thing. Happens to most of us, is all around us, and yet a lot of people don't really know what it is or where it comes from. And what is even more important, what to do against it. Now, this being the 21st century, if there is something that we don't know or don't understand, we don't ask experts anymore, we don't read books, right? We ask ChatGPT. Or, if you're a little bit more old school or not trusting the so-called AI that much, you ask YouTube, which is great. If you search for procrastination on YouTube, you'll find hundreds of videos. Good news, right? Bad news is that the most popular one, this TED Talk here from Tim Urban, actually tells you nothing helpful. Doesn't say where it comes from, what the reasons are, and it doesn't tell you what to do against it. Doesn't stop people from watching it. I mean, it has like 54 million views, which is more than 4 times as many as the next video about procrastination, which happens to be a video, actually a song, in Japanese. Don't ask me why. Now people tell me, yeah, sure, but this video has been online for 7 years and the other one only for 2 years. To which I respond, true, but it also gets more than twice as many views per hour than the second most watched one. So every hour, this TED Talk edges more ahead. Last argument I keep hearing from people, sure, but this was published on the TED Talk channel. It's very popular, has a lot of subscribers. True. But, last fact here, inside the channel, this TED Talk about procrastination, not telling you what you can do about it, performs approximately 100 times better than the average video on the same channel. So what is going on here? And don't get me wrong, it's an awesome TED Talk. If you haven't seen it, you should really check it out. I watched it multiple times while I was procrastinating. But, like I said, not very helpful. Today, I will try to change the focus a bit. Probably, the presentation will not be as entertaining, but definitely, it's going to be more helpful. So how am I planning to do that? We are going to look at procrastination, right? Procrastination can be sneaky. It can come up very quietly from the back, and then we turn around, and suddenly, there's something really scary in front of us, intimidating, and we are here and like, have no means to deal with it. What can I do except watch the next episode of my favorite show? Like you heard in the introduction, my name is Sascha. My purpose here in the next 44 minutes and 43 seconds approximately is to give you the means to deal with this, to tame the procrastination dragon. They are very simple means. That's the good news. Everything I tell you here today, if you're willing, you can take and apply immediately. Okay, well, not right in this second while you're sitting here, but as soon as you get back home and you have watched another episode of your favorite show. All right. So, what are the 3 areas we're talking about? First one is our mindset. And don't worry, it's not about meditating for hours and weeks or doing a session in an Indian ashram, although this could be an interesting experience for other reasons. No, it's much simpler than that, as you will see. The second area has to do with our behavior, so the things that we do and how we do them. And the third area is about our environment. And in this case, I'm talking about our immediate environment. So this is not about global warming, but what we can do in our direct surroundings to improve our productivity and to remove or overcome procrastination. And in the sweet spot of these 3 areas, obviously, are all the things you need to become the dragon tamer and scare procrastination away. Going to be very simple. But before we jump into details, let's make sure we are all on the same page by clarifying a few basics about procrastination. Like I said, most people have heard the word, almost everybody has done it, even if you didn't know the word. But very few people actually know exactly what it is, and let's clarify this. So what is procrastination? In essence, it's the avoidance of necessary and important actions, right? So that's really the core. but there's a few elements that we need to put in addition to this simple statement. The avoidance of necessary or important actions involving that we consciously choose short-term pleasure over our long-term goals and responsibilities, knowing full well that if we do it, there might be negative consequences. All right? Let me try to repeat and summarize because it's very important. Avoidance of necessary actions, knowing that this could be bad for us and that it most likely will be. So it's not like, yeah, maybe, lottery chances, it will be bad. No. It's more like, if I say something stupid, my wife gets angry, chance is bad, right? So very likely. Okay, considering this definition, who has procrastinated in the last month? I'm with you. I mean, don't be shy. Exactly. Last week? Today? I see. That's totally fine. And now, who thinks they are a procrastinator? Right, confusion. Okay, one brave soul. Another one, well, supported, I see, okay. You have been volunteered, congratulations. So why do I ask this question? It's a bit confusing, right? If I procrastinate, I am a procrastinator. Am I not? Well, not really. So we know from studies, and the topic of procrastination has been studied for the last 30 plus years. We know that 95% of people procrastinate, more or less often, more or less severe, but we also saw it here, right? So in the last month, I think every hand went up. Everybody procrastinated. I have kids. My son is at school. He's supposed to do homework. Supposed to do, right? I mean, he's like a procrastination champion. Everything is suddenly more important. I want to do some workout. I want to clean my room. You know, it's like... So 95% of people, for all intents and purposes, we can say everybody procrastinates at some point, right? Now, the good news is that out of these people who procrastinate occasionally, only 20% are so-called clinical procrastinators. So these are people who do have a condition. It's like having depression, right? If a person has a depression, you don't say, you're just sad. You actually have a problem. Now, the bad news for people here today falling into this 20% segment is all these tips we are sharing today are still going to help you, just not as much as the other 80%, all right? But if you're in the 80%, and usually 100% of people think they're in the 80%, you're in luck. Everything here is going to help you right away. Very quickly, and probably you experienced many of those, or at least some of those yourselves, what are the effects of procrastination? Well, the most obvious one is we lose time. Right? Again, we know from studies that for a person who is working full-time, meaning 40 hours per week, it adds up to 23 days per year wasted. And these are not work days, these are like full 24-hour days, right? For students, and I know there are a lot of students here, some of them I met at Sapientia and Petro Mayo earlier this month, last month actually. It's even worse because it adds up to 55 days. Also clear why, right? It's much easier to procrastinate as a student when you're sitting alone somewhere rather than in an office with people around you trying to kick you to do your tasks. Another, maybe not so obvious effect is that this constant hesitation to do something or to agree to something or to try something new will lead to us missing opportunities, which usually is not great, right? For the long-term effects, we saw before that one part of procrastination is prioritizing short-term gratification over long-term responsibilities and goals. This is exactly this. So your goal might be to run a marathon in 2 years. I don't know. I mean, you could. If you keep putting out the training sessions, if you stop practicing, if you don't even start properly, if you have the wrong equipment, whatever, you're going to sabotage these goals yourselves, which doesn't make you feel good, obviously. On the outside world, constantly not performing or underperforming and not being reliable is going to have a negative impact on your reputation. So now you have yourself internally feeling not great because you know you should be doing stuff. And then you have other people seeing that you're not reliable, which is not good for your reputation and later on, obviously, in your career. Additionally, you have risk to your health, physical and mental. Right? Again, simple example. I try to eat relatively healthy and fail miserably, but fortunately I have a wife keeping me on track. And mental health as well, because this constant stress and pressure on your own mind that there are so many things you should have done but didn't do is just going to increase over time. And last not least, people will start to see themselves as failures, right? You get these annoying existential questions. Why can't I be better? Why can't I do better? Why am I so bad at just doing the things that I need to do? I'm a failure, I'm a loser, etc. So you don't want to go there. It's a vicious circle, which also brings us to the root causes of procrastination. There are a lot of them, so I cannot cover all of them today, but we're going to look at the three most common ones. The first one is already fear of failure. It's also by far the biggest one or the most common one. The thinking behind that is, the procrastinator logic, as I would like to call it, is that I'd rather not even try, or not try very hard, than to try and fail. I'd rather have people think that I could have done better if I had tried harder, right? So I prefer people thinking that I'm too lazy or too busy instead of I'm not good enough. And if I don't try and I don't fail, I also cannot be judged. So it's again a vicious circle where the procrastinator logic is leading us and is obviously not helping. Because if you have this fear of failure in your mind, you're clearly not going to be willing to work on whatever it is that you need to do. Work on a project, on a task, having this uncomfortable conversation with your spouse or your employee or your colleague at work, or having a presentation at an event. Right? The thing here that can help for the 80% I mentioned before is to realize and really accept that failure is completely normal. There is nobody in the world who doesn't fail occasionally. What we can try and shall try to do is to take any kind of failure or mistake as a learning opportunity. There is this very famous principle that we learn the most from our failures. Right? This starts as a kid. I don't know how it was for you, but I have two sisters, both of them younger, and each of us has been told by our parents, do not touch the stove, it's hot. It's very hot, you get hurt. And intellectually, even as a kid, yeah, sure, it's hot, I put my hand, it hurts. What did we all do? Touch the stove, oh, it hurts, it hurts. So, what we learned, only once, right? Never again. So, we learn from failure. More important than my childhood memories, maybe two quick examples for this. The first one is about all these famous and rich businessmen, right? You haven't heard of them for years, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, a guy comes and becomes super successful. And everybody's like, wow, this guy got so lucky. What people don't see is that these successful business people fail on average 10 times with earlier enterprises and ideas. So for every successful guy, there were 10 attempts where he or she failed on average, right? Some fail more often, some are still on the journey, like myself, obviously, failure after failure, but who knows? Others succeed more often, but on average, it's the 11th attempt that makes them an overnight success. The second example, probably well known by most of you, is about Thomas Edison, guys with the light bulbs. And obviously, he tried very hard to make light bulbs work. They had to be burning bright. They shouldn't flicker. They should burn for a long time. And it was very difficult to find the right combination of bulb shape, the gas inside the bulb, the material out of which the wire is made, how much voltage to put into the wire, etc. And over time, they tried 10,000 different combinations. And the people around him started saying, come on, just give it up. We failed 10,000 times already. Why do we even keep trying? To which Thomas Edison, allegedly, said, I did not fail 10,000 times. I found 10,000 ways in which it doesn't work. So I'm a step further, right? Failure is okay, as long as we manage to learn from it. And this might sound a bit cheesy and everything, but also in real life, practically, if you manage to get your mind around this idea, you will see that the next mistake or the next failure doesn't look so bad anymore. Then, paradoxically, the second reason for procrastination is fear of success. You're like, what? I'm afraid of failure, I'm afraid of success. If I'm afraid of both, I won't do anything. So, exactly, procrastination, right? Here again, procrastinator logic says that, okay, if I perform well at something now, who knows if I can do it again? And if I can't do it as well as now, next time, then people will think I was only lucky the first time. And I'm not as good as I should be, or as they think I was. And rather than risking this, I'd not do anything. Okay? So fear of success, very sneaky, and related to fear of failure, of course. So similar remedies, don't be afraid. We will also see later when we come to the first area, the mindset area, why we should not care so much about what other people might think of us. Third reason is perfectionism. Here we have the procrastinator logic, thinking that I probably can't do it as well as I should, so it's better I don't do it at all, right? So instead of just doing something acceptable or even something good, because it's never going to be perfect in my own mind, right? And I probably have very high standards for myself, higher standards than everybody else, it's better I don't do it. Because once again, I don't want to be the one who looks like he cannot do the job properly. Here we need to remember the old saying that perfect is the enemy of good. So it's totally fine to aim for perfection, as long as you accept that you're most likely not going to reach it. It's like with the idea of equal and human rights for everybody on Earth, right? It's a grand idea. I don't think that there are a lot of people disagreeing with the concept that everybody should have the same rights, regardless of who they are, where they were born, what color their skin is, whatever. Are we ever going to reach it? That really everybody is completely equal? Well, most likely not. But should this stop us from trying? Certainly not. Same with this. Aim for perfection, but be okay with not achieving it. Be prepared to accept a good solution instead of chasing the perfect one. Short story regarding perfectionism. I know that most people here are too young to remember, but there was a very famous ice hockey player called Wayne Gretzky. He was from Canada. He then moved on to the United States. He was a key factor for making the National Hockey League what it is today. He was so good. Imagine Messi. Everybody's kind of familiar with Messi, right? I mean, football player, short guy, great player. Imagine Messi, multiply his skill and his impact on football by 10, and you probably get in the area of what Wayne Gretzky was for ice hockey. He was so good that people started calling him the Great One, and still do. I think he retired more than 20 years ago, and when he did, his jersey number, the 99, was also retired. So since then, nobody in the whole National Hockey League has ever worn the number 99 again. This is how good the guy was, right? And this is how much respect he got. I'm just telling you this to give you some sort of context and perspective. So he was as close to perfect as he could get. But still, he wasn't. Despite all the records he broke, he was not perfect. And he had a strange habit. He was shooting at the goal very often. Well, that's usually not so strange in ice hockey. I mean, that's kind of the idea, right? To get the puck in the other team's goal. But he was shooting from very strange positions where no other players would even try. And of course, he was missing like 80% of his shots, 90% of his shots sometimes. So people asked him, dude, you're shooting from these crazy positions. If you do this, you may miss up to 90% of your shots. Why do you keep shooting? To which Gretzky just said, yeah, true. If I try, I may miss up to 90%. But if I don't even shoot, I miss 100%. I miss 100% of the shots that I do not take, right? So this guy was as close to perfect as possible, but wasn't really, and was not afraid of trying and failing. Okay, so much for the 3 root causes. Let's look at the different areas that I mentioned earlier and what we need to do or can do in order to tackle procrastination practically in real life. First is about the mindset. And the thing with mindset is it's not easy to change because depending on how old you are, you spend a lot of time building it, right? So in my case, it's more like cathedral size, I would say. For some of the people I met here, it's still very much in the chapel dimension, so a bit easier to change. Nevertheless, we don't need to change it completely, we just need to adapt it a little bit. And a good starting point is this quote: we cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. It's a bit duh, but if you try to apply it in real life, you will realize it's not that easy. This is a quote from a Greek philosopher called Epictetus. He was a philosopher following the Stoic, or a kind of co-founder, if you like, of the Stoic philosophy. And one of the things that is part of this philosophy is what is called the dichotomy of control. Dichotomy, we have two things. And in the original Stoic philosophy, these two things are, there are certain things that I can control completely, and there are things that I cannot control at all. All right? So this is the dichotomy of control from back in the day, like short after the birth of Christ. And then, approximately 2,000 years later, a guy came along and wrote a book, A Guide to the Good Life. This is William Irvine, very good book. What he does is he takes the Stoic philosophy and applies it to 21st century in real life, how you can actually do it. Of course, you could read the original, but it's slightly dry. What he does in this book is he takes the idea of the dichotomy of control and expands it to a trichotomy. So we still have things that we can control completely. We have things where we have no control whatsoever, but now he also introduced a third category of things where we have some control or influence. Now here are some examples for these things. For complete control, the first two are mindset and behavior. Not a coincidence that these are two of the three areas I'm covering today. Here we have full control. Here we have a large leverage that we can apply in order to change things. Other things are our thoughts, our attitude, our responses to what happens to us. For the things that we cannot control is everything that other people do and say and think, right? So I'm standing here trying my best to give a somewhat entertaining, hopefully informative presentation, but I have no control over what you guys are thinking. You look like you're falling asleep. You seem somewhat interested. What can I do, right? I also can't change what happened already. So sitting here and saying, I really should have prepared better for this presentation. If I only had taken the time, doesn't help at all, right? So forget about it. And then there are some things that we can influence, like our immediate environment. My third area, again, not a coincidence. Our own health, of course, physical and mental health, with food, with exercise, with doing things that are good for us. Our career and relationship, we cannot control those completely, but we definitely have an influence, right? And of course, our own reputation. Now, the whole idea is in this mindset shift, to accept that we cannot control certain things, and then to use most of our energy, time, and effort to focus on the things where we have some control, right? So there you put most of your effort to make them good, and then the rest on the things where you have complete control. Again, makes kind of sense. Why would you want to waste time and effort on things you can't control anyway? Why would you want to sit for an hour being angry and grumpy because yesterday something happened that you can't change anymore? Okay, so this is our mindset adaptation. Don't worry about stuff you can't control. Focus on the things where you have influence and where you have full control. Now, to our behavior things. And here I have 5 tips for you, super practical. First tip, everybody has experienced that once you're doing something, it's much easier to keep doing, right? To keep going. The tricky part is to get going, to get started. For this, we have something called the 5-minute rule. All you need for it is an hourglass. Because our brain, smart as it is also a bit stupid. What you do with this hourglass is, you're sitting in front of a task that you have to do, but you don't want to, right? Netflix is calling, YouTube is lurking in a browser tab somewhere, and you're like, the brain is telling you, come on, this takes too long. I cannot focus for like 4 hours on this stuff. So you go and tell your brain, look, I get it. I'm totally with you, obviously. But I also know that you're smart. So let's do a deal. I take this hourglass. It runs for 5 minutes. I will turn it around. As soon as I do that, you, my brain, and I, are going to focus on this shitty task. And for the next 5 minutes, we don't do anything else. We are hardcore focused. No interruptions, no distractions, no excuses. Funny thing is, once you do that, tests and studies show 90% of people keep working for 37 minutes or more. Our brain is smart, but also a bit stupid. So once you get going, you don't worry about the hourglass anymore. This is also why you should use something like an hourglass. It's not a good idea to set the time on your phone, right? Because if after 5 minutes it goes, your brain is like, I'm done, I'm out of here, thank you, and nice try. Okay, so 5-minute rule. Get one of those. Convince your brain that it's a cool guy, it can focus for 5 minutes. I mean, it would be very embarrassing if it kept telling you, even 5 minutes, I can't. All right, second tip. If you're doing sports, or if you're watching sports while you're procrastinating in front of the TV, you might be familiar with high-intensity interval training. Good news, the same concept can be applied for your brain, or your mind, if you wish. The basic idea of this is that you have a period of high intense activity. In sports, it's typically working out with heavy weights or doing a lot of repetitions or running very fast, depending on what you do. And then you have a period where you relax. This relaxed period can be you don't do anything, right? You're just chilling. Or you do some light exercises to keep warm and not cool down. Now, for the brain, we have something called the Pomodoro technique. And here you're even allowed to use a timer. Lucky you. What you do with this timer is you set it to a period of 25 to 30 minutes. And during this period, you work, once again, very focused on whatever it is that is in front of you. Then, when these 25 minutes are over, you set another timer for 5 to 10 minutes. And during this period, you take a break. And it's very, very important to really take a break. Don't stay in front of your task and wait until the 10 minutes are over. Go somewhere. Drink a coffee, smoke a cigarette, talk to your spouse, run around in the garden, I don't care. But go away from work. Also very important, when the 10 minutes are over, you start the next Pomodoro session. All right, so high-intensity interval training for your brain. Work hard, relax, work again. You will be surprised, if you give it an honest try, how much work you can actually get done in 50 minutes, so 2 sessions, compared to not trying this. Tip number 3. I told you about my son before. He is in school, and not too long ago, he came home and asked me, or told me rather, Daddy, I know a joke. How do you eat a whole elephant? And I said, well, I'd rather not. And he goes, nah, bite by bite. And it's the same for work. If you're facing a huge task, which just seems overwhelming, and it's like, you know that theoretically you can do it, but it will take you days or weeks, and it's just, you don't even know where to start. It's so cumbersome. Break it down. Multiple advantages and benefits if you do that. If you break it down in smaller chunks, you will finish these chunks smaller, and every time you finish one, ideally you even write it down somewhere, every time you say done, your brain, our old friend, gets a dopamine hit. It's like, success, right? It's similar to when you get a like on Facebook or TikTok or whatever you're using, but more productive. Also, every time you complete something, you get it out of your mind, because our brain is very good at being creative and at thinking, but not so great at remembering, especially mine, but that's more of a personal problem. It's in general true. Remembering things, especially many different things, is challenging for us and takes brain capacity, which we could use better. So break things down, check them off your list, get your dopamine hit, release some capacity of your brain. Tip number 4, the 2-minute rule. Has nothing to do with the 5 minutes guy, so it's not like the little brother or something, but has everything to do with, once again, getting things done. Incidentally, this is also where it comes from. There is this approach, or it's also a book called Getting Things Done by David Allen. Looks very complicated, but basically it says, if you have something to do, which comes from somewhere, email or message, or somebody comes to your desk and asks something, whatever it is, you see if you have to do something, and if yes, you ask yourself, does it take less than 2 minutes? If the answer is yes, you don't put it down. You do it, right? Don't say, I'll do it later. No. If it's less than 2 minutes, do it right away. Same principle as before. As soon as you have done it, dopamine and brain capacity, right? So double bonus. Obviously, there is one question. Who knows what question this is? One very obvious question in this chart. Yes, please. Exactly. Smart guy. What happens if it takes longer? Well, David Allen is not stupid either. He also has an answer for this. If it takes longer than 2 minutes, you can do one of two things with it. You can delay it until later, but this does not mean you just put it somewhere. You actually write it down, either on your to-do list or in your calendar, whatever you want. Or, and that's much better if you can delegate it, right? Then it's somebody else's problem. Okay, so the important part for us is the red one. Less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. Longer than that, you need to plan it somehow. Of course, as you can see, there are other decision points here. If you fall into those, there's also a process, but we're not covering this. I put it here for completeness, so you know there is something that you can do. If you want to know how it works, I'm happy to discuss it later, outside, or you can read the book. David Allen will be happy, he totally needs the money. Tip number 5 for behavior. Most people have this problem. So in this chart, we have the y-axis, where we show the benefit of doing something to our life. And on the x-axis, we have time. So most people face this dilemma. Shall I do something now that gives me pleasure, short-term gratification, but later I will pay for it, right? So shall I eat nachos tonight when I'm watching something, knowing that tomorrow I will suffer? Or the alternative is, I suck it up, I don't do what I want to do now, so I feel a bit, not so great, but later on, I will get the benefit. So we have again this gap between short-term gratification and long-term benefits. Now, what we can do to overcome this trade-off is something called temptation bundling. The idea here is that we make a deal with ourselves, or you and your brain, saying, okay, I really want to watch this episode, and before I do it, I will do something that I have to do. So before I can do something that I want to do, I need to complete something that I have to do. This could be 1 or 2 Pomodoro sessions, for example, right? Tell yourself, I will do 2 Pomodoro sessions, and then I can watch the episode. Many advantages there. First of all, you don't really have a trade-off, because you get the best of both worlds. You get the short-term gratification from watching TV, and you get the long-term benefits from completing your work. There's a third benefit, because after watching the episode, you actually don't feel bad. Because you had a deal, right? You completed stuff, and there's a reward, you got to watch. So you don't need to be bad, you don't need to think that you're a loser, you don't need to be depressed. All the things we heard before about procrastination effects don't apply anymore. So tip number 5, temptation bundling. Super easy stuff. Can all be done right away. And now I know some of you are thinking, at least those who are still with me, yeah, sure, but every time I try to sit down and focus, something pings or rings or pops up. Which brings me to area number 3, our environment, starting with our digital environment. We need to declutter our digital environment. So if you need a PC to work on whatever it is that you need to do, you should make sure that you get rid of your phone, at least temporarily. So at the very least, put it into something like airplane mode. Even better, put it in a different room. If you want to know why it's better to put it in a different room, I can tell you afterwards, because I don't have time anymore. But at the very least, put it in airplane mode so it doesn't give you any sort of notifications. If you need your PC, put it into, on Windows it's called focus mode. I'm sure there's an equivalent on Mac. I don't know exactly how it's called, but you will find it if you're a Mac user. So you don't get notifications. Exit all the stupid messenger apps, Teams and Skypes and Slack and whatever else you have open. Maybe a WhatsApp client, because it's not enough that it pings on the phone, it has to be on the PC. Turn them off, right? And the third thing in terms of digital environment, quick question, who has frequently more than 10 browser tabs open at the same time? Yes. More than 20? Dudes, why? I mean, seriously. You can't look at them, right? You can't see them. But your brain does. So if you have the browser and you have the one tab with the thing that you need to work on, your brain, sneakily, tells your eye to look over there, because look, there's YouTube. Come on, just a quick video. Close them. Close all the tabs, all the applications you do not need for whatever it is you're working on. That's digital decluttering. Related to this, we also have physical decluttering. So all the images I've shown so far were actually AI generated. Brave new world. This one is a real picture. That's my desk. That's how it looks like in the morning when I start working, and in the evening when I finish working, except I turn off the PC, obviously. Now, I have one rule for my desk, basically. This is, on the desk itself, I don't want to see or have anything that I do not use daily. Really daily, strict. Items that I don't use every day, but a couple of times a week maybe, go into the drawers under my desk. And items that I use even less frequently go either also into drawers when they're small, or into some cabinet if they're too big. Easy rule. Has an additional advantage, because I'm working from home, almost exclusively nowadays, and I do not have anymore this period between leaving the office and arriving at home. So this commute period, which I used to use for my brain, right? To say, okay, this was the work day, was nice or not, whatever. But 15 minutes later, when I arrive home, I'm in private mode, I'm in family mode, my brain could switch off. I don't have this anymore. Now I use the routine of cleaning up my desk. So in the evening, I just clean up, put everything in order, and my brain knows, now it's private, now it's family time. It's also nice to come back the next morning and find a clean desk, but that's a bonus. There is one small exception. The attentive viewer may have noticed there is something here which I don't really use every day. But they don't make noise, they don't move, they don't smell. So every rule has an exception, and this is mine. You see, it's a Mandalorian, right? And the baby, and the little Darth Vader, right? I mean, come on. There has to be a bit of a nerd factor. All right, quick recap. Everybody procrastinates, but only 20% of us are actual procrastinators. If you are in this 20%, and you might not know it, because it's not so easy to know, but if you suspect, you need to get help. You need probably something called CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, which is beyond my skills. So go and get an expert. But we also know now that procrastination is a learned behavior, which is good because we can unlearn it. Remember, we change our mindset, we adapt it. We focus on what we can control and don't worry about the other stuff. So things that we can't change, I'm not willing to waste time or energy on it. I don't have so much time left, right? I mean, for you it's different, you can still waste time. But in my case, it's getting tight. We had 5 simple tips for changing the behavior, which you can easily apply. Okay, not everybody has an hourglass at home, but I might have a remedy for some of you at least. And we also said we can make it easier by decluttering our digital and physical environment. Get rid of the noise around us. So that would be a good time for your thoughts or questions or clarifications if you are confused about something. Yes, that's what usually happens, which is why, bear with me. I came prepared. I would say I'm bringing gifts, but I don't. I'm bringing rewards. These are hourglasses. 5 minutes. So the first, what do we have? 2, 3, 5. First 5 questions related to the topic. Get an hourglass, right here, right now. Sometimes we need a little bit of extrinsic motivation, right? If this doesn't tempt you, then I can't help you. Really. At university, that's work. There you go. Very brave. Hang on, you get a microphone.
What can you do to not procrastinate during the Pomodoro sessions?
Ha, good question. You can combine your Pomodoro timer with your newly gained hourglass. Congratulations. And I'm not even kidding. It really works. So if you start your Pomodoro session and you tell your brain, come on, it's just 5 minutes. Works. Next. 4 more. There you go. And then I have somebody over there. Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. My question is, how do you do Pomodoro in combination of deep work? Because then you don't really want to stop.
Yes, very good point. So deep work typically is a longer period than 25 minutes, right? So if you manage to get into deep work, if you manage to get into the flow, which we discussed last year, for those who were here and still remember, then of course you don't want the timer to interrupt you. I think it's a very individual challenge, and you need to find out for yourself if and how easy you can get into deep work. So if you constantly struggle and you find yourself getting out of your work process every 15 or 20 minutes, start with Pomodoro sessions. But if you reach a point where the Pomodoro session actually starts to interrupt you, cancel it. You don't need to keep doing it, obviously, right? If you found a way for yourself to get into a deep flow session, into a deep work session, into the flow, you don't have to use Pomodoro. Actually, very important. All the stuff I said here, you can use all of those things, or some of them. You can use them for a while and then give them up. It totally depends on you and your situation, right? This is not one size fits all. It's like many things work for many people in different ways. So we had somebody over here. Where was it? There.
I was just wondering if there is such thing as good procrastination. Like in Romania, we have a saying, leave it until tomorrow, maybe you don't need to do it anymore.
Yes. If you wait long enough, it goes away. I know. Actually, again, very good question. I also had it recently, but was not you, was it? No. At university, I think it was a Petrumaio, somebody asked. And for me, if we remember the definition of procrastination, right? We delay doing something, although we know there will be negative consequences, most likely. For me, and also if you do the research online, there is no such thing as good procrastination. Now, it's a bit confusing because if you go online and do research, you find a lot of articles that claim there is good procrastination, but you need to dig a bit harder. What they define or describe as good procrastination is actually mostly people taking a break and thinking about what they need to do before they start doing it. Right? So they don't really procrastinate. It's not like they do something else, like again, watching something or doing fun stuff instead of working. They're actually preparing for doing the work. So the short answer is no, I don't think there is good procrastination. And the long answer is that what many people think is good procrastination is not procrastination at all. I saw somebody else over there, please, in the middle. Okay, somebody in the back. You can keep asking questions when I have no more. I still have like 6 minutes.
Hi.
Yes.
I was wondering, what do you do when you have procrastinators on your team? I mean, other than maybe handing them an hourglass. How do you really motivate someone, especially if you're not in a position of management towards them, so you can't quite dictate the tasks? For a teammate that you can tell is procrastinating on something that's a team effort that you need their involvement in, how do you approach that?
The interesting thing about most people procrastinating is that they don't care so much if they don't do something for themselves, so if they don't achieve their own goals for their own purposes and benefits, but most of them care very much if they let other people down. Right? So if you manage to explain to them the consequences of their procrastination, that it's not just affecting themselves, but people relying on them, you should have a good chance of, well, not healing them in the sense, but of getting them more engaged and being more reliable. So back there in the end, yes, exactly. No, was back there, the young lady. She tried 3 times already, and I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah, totally. I mean, I get it. I would want one too. Timing.
Hello.
Yes.
I was wondering, which are the symptoms of a clinical procrastinator?
Well, clinical procrastinators obviously procrastinate more than others because even if they try very hard, they simply can't overcome it. Like I said before, it's like if you tell a person with clinical depression, just be happy, right? It's the same with clinical procrastinators. You can't tell them and say, come on, just do it. Just 5 minutes, come on, it's not so hard. For these people, even that is really, really difficult. And I think the key symptom, probably also for yourself, if you think you might be a procrastinator, is that you really try a lot to get going, to do your things, but you keep failing anyway, despite your best efforts. So now let's see if people are still interested. Yes, please. Sorry, just a second. I overruled you before, right? There you go. Sorry. And then I have time for this. It's like flashing.
I have a nice question. What should we do if I'm applying the 5-minute rule and I notice the clock that 5 minutes passed and I'm not stuck in the work? What should I do? Because I feel disappointed in myself that I couldn't.
You take your hourglass. I mean, first, you take a break, right? We have a lot to do, so let's start with a break. You take your hourglass, and the next time you do it, you put it further away. Right? So you don't accidentally see it. So if this were my desk, which is kind of small, I would put it as far away as I possibly can from the area where I'm actually working. Because yes, that's a risk. If you accidentally look over here and your brain says, all the sand is gone, you're screwed, right? So try to keep it away, and apart from that, you probably need to keep trying. So there's no guarantee that this works the very first time you do it, right?
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
yes.
Yeah, as a parent myself, I'm curious which techniques work for your kids, or which ones have you tried and worked? Yes.
For my kids, it's a completely different technique which I cannot give to you because it's usually their mother. But
okay, so it's the same, right?
No. So, all joking aside, what does work with the older one, who is 9 years old now, is this temptation bundling, right? So, and breaking down things. Last week, or this week actually, was vacation in Brasov, right? And he was home, and of course he had a lot of homework to do during this period, and of course he was not in the mood to do it. So what we did, we combined actually two of these tips. First, we broke down the homework and said, okay, every day just a bit, right, in smaller portions. And then we said, okay, we also say, you really, really want to play on your Nintendo Switch, right? Yes. All right. If you finish this, then you can play for, I don't know, a certain period. So it's temptation bundling together with breaking it down, which works for us. Again, no guarantee that it works for others, but it's an idea. Yes?
I want to ask you if procrastination is the effect of burnout.
I think it's a bilateral relationship, but probably in most cases, it would be the other way around, I think. In most cases, I think that procrastination can contribute to being burned out. Sounds weird because, come on, I'm procrastinating. I'm only doing things where I have short-term gratification and I'm relaxing and chilling. Why would I get burned out? Because it's a different type of stress. Again, was topic last year, so you might want to look up the video. It's a different type of stress. It's not the stress of having to do too many things or having to do things that you don't like to do, but the mental stress of knowing that you should have done certain things, but didn't. Right? So I think most cases it will go in this direction, but I also think that it can go in the other direction. It can well be that you're working very hard, and it's not even so much about working very hard, but that you're doing a lot of things which don't satisfy you, right? Which are not what you really want to do, even at work, leading to burnout. And of course, then you would say, oh, come on, screw it, right? Why would I even bother? Why should I do this? All right, guys, I have 37 seconds. I hope you have a lot of questions left. I'm here all day. You can usually find me walking around trying to look important somewhere. If you have a question, don't hesitate, walk up to me. I will be more than happy to try to answer them. And until then, thank you for your attention, for your somewhat reluctant participation in the beginning, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.